The story opens on what was meant to be an ordinary, peaceful evening, the kind that feels especially precious after years of public life and constant motion. In their New York apartment, the city hummed softly outside, offering a familiar backdrop to a life built on shared routines and rare moments of calm. For Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, quiet had become a luxury earned through decades of work, parenting, and partnership. Nothing about the day suggested disruption or fear. There were jokes, small promises, and the comfortable rhythm of a long marriage. This calm beginning is important because it highlights how suddenly life can turn. The contrast between peace and crisis sets the emotional foundation for everything that follows, reminding the audience that even the most stable, loving lives are vulnerable to unexpected change. The phone call that shattered the calm. The sudden ring of the phone becomes the moment where everything fractures. It is not dramatic in volume, but it carries an urgency that cuts through the stillness instantly. Kelly's instinctive reaction, her racing heart even before hearing the words, signals that something is terribly wrong. The call from the hospital delivers the news no partner is ever prepared for. Mark has been rushed to intensive care after a medical emergency. Details are scarce, and that lack of clarity deepens the fear. In a single sentence, the life she knows is thrown off balance. This moment captures the shock that comes with medical crises, where time seems to split into before and after. Mark is no longer just a public figure or a familiar presence at home. He is suddenly fragile, out of reach, and dependent on machines and doctors. A world turned upside down in an instant. As Kelly rushes to the hospital, her mind struggles to connect the man she left that morning with the one now fighting for stability. Mark had seemed tired but normal, joking and planning as always. This disconnect between the ordinary morning and the terrifying night emphasizes how unpredictable illness can be. Hospital corridors blur together as she is guided toward the ICU, her senses overloaded yet strangely numb. When she finally sees Mark surrounded by machines, the shock becomes real. The strong, familiar presence she has leaned on for decades is replaced by wires, tubes, and the cold efficiency of medical equipment. For someone whose career depends on words and connection, silence takes over. This section shows how crisis strips away identity, fame, and confidence, leaving only raw human vulnerability and fear. Silence, strength, and a private collapse. Inside the ICU room, Kelly's reaction is quiet rather than dramatic. Witnesses describe her as composed, but those who know her understand that her silence speaks volumes. Holding Mark's hand carefully, she seems afraid that even love might hurt him. There are no jokes, no public persona, only a trembling whisper of his name. This moment reveals the depth of her fear and devotion. Doctors explain that the next hours are critical, a word that echoes endlessly in her mind. The scene humanizes a woman often seen as confident and unshakable, showing that strength does not always look loud. Sometimes it looks like stillness, patience, and the ability to remain present when everything feels out of control. A love story tested by uncertainty. Kelly and Mark's relationship has long been admired as a rare Hollywood success. Their history, beginning decades earlier, is filled with shared growth, family, and mutual support. That history now becomes both a comfort and a source of pain. Sitting beside an ICU bed, Kelly feels powerless despite a lifetime of managing careers and family life. The absence of scripts and plans makes the situation even harder. She stays through the night, refusing to leave, driven by love and fear in equal measure. This section highlights how even the strongest relationships are tested in moments of medical uncertainty, where love must exist without guarantees and hope must survive without promises. Family, support, and what truly matters. As the news quietly reaches their children and close circle, the family unites with urgency and care. Flights are booked, calls are made, and privacy becomes a shield. Watching her children step into strength reminds Kelly of everything she and Mark built together, making the stakes feel even higher. Support also comes from friends and colleagues, though much of it stays behind the scenes. Messages pour in, but Kelly barely notices, focused instead on each rise and fall of Mark's chest. This part of the story underscores how crisis redefines priorities. Fame, schedules, and public attention fade, replaced by the fundamental importance of family, presence, and shared history. Waiting, remembering, and holding on time. In the ICU moves painfully slowly, doctors offer careful updates filled with caution rather than certainty. Kelly listens, asking questions when she can steady her voice, balancing fear with hope. She begins speaking to Mark, recounting memories of their life together, as if reminding both of them that their story is not finished. These whispered moments are intimate and deeply human. They show how memory becomes a lifeline when the future feels uncertain. By revisiting shared laughter, challenges, and love, Kelly anchors herself to hope, believing that connection might reach him even when words cannot. A fragile sign of hope. As exhaustion sets in and morning approaches, a subtle change shifts the atmosphere in the room. A small movement, barely noticeable, signals possible response. Doctors are called, and Kelly's fear transforms into cautious relief. It is not a miracle, but it is enough to let her cry openly for the first time, releasing hours of silent tension. This moment represents the fragile nature of hope in medical crises. Progress is measured in inches, not leaps, yet even the smallest sign can feel monumental. It shows how resilience is built not on certainty, but on the willingness to believe in improvement, however slow or uncertain it may be. Love standing firm in uncertain days. The story closes not with resolution, but with commitment. Mark's condition remains serious, and recovery, if it comes, will take time. Kelly stays by his side, choosing presence over everything else. She makes no public statements because none are needed. What matters happens quietly, away from cameras. This ending reinforces the central message. When faced with fear and uncertainty, love does not retreat. It waits, it hopes, and it holds on. In the sterile stillness of the hospital room, life is reduced to its most essential truth, that connection, loyalty, and shared history are what give strength when nothing else can.